Hey everyone, Anton here from the Huntress SOC with another case overview today. And this one is really interesting as it's a very neat VPN compromise case. So in the past, we've covered VPN compromise. We've shown kind of what this looks like under the hood, but we haven't really done kind of like an end-to-end intrusion analysis of what a VPN compromise looks like. So for this particular case, it all started with a SIEM alert for a logon from a known malicious workstation name. So as we investigate cases here, we're always trying to pick up little nuggets that threat actors leave behind, whether that be an IP address, a command line. In this case, it's a workstation name. So if we see the same workstation name involved in intrusions multiple times, we fire off an alert, we make a rule for that, and this is what you're looking at here. So these are signals from our SIEM telling us that there is a login occurring in this network with a workstation name that we've previously observed doing malicious activity. So, ransomware, extortion, things like that. So this is a really, really high fidelity alert, which is rare. And not only is it high fidelity, it's coming in at the start of the intrusion. So in this case, when we see a login from a known malicious workstation name, we'll isolate the host so that the threat actor can't do anything else. So in this case, all that happened is an authentication event, the workstation got isolated, and that's the end of that intrusion. So this is a really good example of why a SIEM is really powerful. And it's also a good illustration of the different things that a SIEM covers versus what an EDR covers. So an EDR will cover things like process things, network events potentially, anything happening on the command line, anything happening on the host, whereas a SIEM typically covers things like authentication events, things related to your Active Directory, maybe PowerShell and things like that. There's definitely overlap, but in this case, again, it's a really good illustration of where the SIEM kind of shines and how the SIEM works with EDR to provide holistic protection for your networks. So going back to this case, we received an alert for a malicious workstation name. Then the next step here is to do a SIEM search to see what else was this IP doing? Where did it come from? How was it authenticating? Did it touch anything else on the network? And what's interesting here is that the source IP belongs to the VPN range. So that's a clue for us that this is potentially VPN compromise. We have the source workstation name here. And then an interesting thing that we're looking at here is the authentication package. So when VPN authentication occurs in your Active Directory network, sometimes that authentication is Kerberos, and most often that authentication is NTLM. So for authentications happening within your Active Directory environment, what we would expect to see when we're investigating cases like this is Kerberos authentication. For authentications happening from a VPN device or a VPN range from a machine that is not part of your domain, that authentication is typically NTLM. It doesn't work out like this 100% of the time. It's just little clues that we look at, little strands that we could look at to unravel this intrusion a little bit further. So in this case, the data is telling us that this is ostensibly a VPN compromise. So we reached out to the partner, we grabbed their VPN logs, and when we looked at the VPN logs, we did indeed find a VPN compromise. And what's interesting here is that the VPN compromise itself is happening from a guest account, right? So this is an account that might have been enabled temporarily. Maybe it's enabled permanently to enable like guest access to Wi-Fi or something like that. But in this case, this account did not have MFA wrapped around it. And this is a fairly common dynamic that we run across where normal named accounts would have MFA enabled. However, guest accounts or temporary accounts or service accounts, something like a scanning account, a printing account, a conference room, boardroom account, those kinds of accounts on VPN appliances usually don't have VPN enabled on them. Whether that's for convenience purposes or whether that's just like a temporary thing that the partner forgot about, this is a very common dynamic that we run across. So in this case, again, the guest account was compromised, the remote IP of the threat actor was found, and if we went ahead and popped that IP address into something like IP info, for example, we get the ASN info. So ASNs are really, really powerful, a powerful data point to have when you're doing these kinds of intrusion analysis. And we have a blog out on how to use ASNs. And what's interesting here is that this particular IP is being flagged as privacy. So you have kind of like an inception dynamic happening here where a VPN provider is logging into another VPN. So definitely suspicious. We don't assume that this is malicious 100% of the time. At this point, I would be probably 90% sure that this is malicious, but we always confirm with the partner just in case the user is not using a VPN or anything like that. To kind of wrap this up, we took this IP address, we put it into Census. We love Census here. And in some cases, we get lucky and the threat actor would actually be exposing something to the internet that leaks their host name. In this case, we got the host name from RDP. So this IP address that was malicious, that authenticated to this partner's VPN appliance, we grabbed their IP. That IP address was exposing RDP. We grabbed the host name from that exposed service, and then we could actually cross-reference that host name back to our original SIEM search here. So we have the workstations lining up, we have the IP address lining up, and I thought that this was just a really neat and tidy example of what VPN compromise looks like, and a really good example of how our SIEM serves to protect partners and how the SIEM kind of works with EDR or in tandem with EDR to offer you way more comprehensive protection. So that does it for me, and I'll see everyone in the next one.